Hey everyone, welcome to another Teal live event. Today we are running this event in partnership with the Venture Miami Career Fair that's running the week after Thanksgiving here in Miami. So hopefully some of you that are attending that event are here and help you prepare to sort of really rock it at the career fair and land jobs at all the really cool companies that are there hiring. So a big part of landing a job and frankly growing your career is relationships and networking. And today, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some networking best practices, some things you can do to better your networking. And if we have some time, I'll jump into some tools that we offer for free at Teal that can help you sort of track your networking, show you some stuff on LinkedIn that you can do. And we'll provide some templates and links and all sorts of different things that you could do. So with that, we will dive in. Let me go ahead and get my monitor a little bit better here and get myself ready. All right. Okay. If you're on the stream on LinkedIn, comment, say hello. Would love to chat. We're also streaming to YouTube. So, if you're on YouTube, would love to say hi. Feel free to subscribe to our channel. We're constantly releasing videos. We about do 2 a week right now. We're trying to maybe pump that up to 3 or 4 a week. So lots of content and tips there. If there's anything you want to see, let us know. And if for some reason the stream gets a little glitchy on LinkedIn, head on over to YouTube. It's been very reliable, which makes sense. They're a video platform. LinkedIn does a lot of good things really, really well. Sometimes the streaming just has an issue or two. But no knock on LinkedIn. By far one of the best tools you could use to grow your career. But if it does give you some issues, just head on over to YouTube because we're streaming from the same place to both platforms. All right. So with that, let's dive in. I am going to present my screen here. It's this one. And yeah, didn't mean to double present myself there. All right, so I'm on full screen now, which if someone on the Teal team can tell me if that's working, because when I go to full screen, I can't see myself. You know what? Let me put it on a separate monitor. I think it's just going to be a little bit better for everyone else. That way I can check myself and make sure I'm. Yeah, that's what I thought. Let me go ahead and stop my screen share. Do this monitor instead. All right. Cool. So we don't need a bigger me than the slideshows. That probably makes more sense to do something like this. Where's the other one? They have another version. There we go. That's the one. Okay. So that's what we wanted to do. Thanks for the kind regards. So networking 101, right? What we're going to talk about here is some sort of best practices on networking and, ways to sort of up your networking game. So let's dive in. We are going to do a quick introduction. We're going to do some networking and relationships, sort of how to network, and then we'll wrap up. Again, networking is oftentimes like this elusive thing for people. It can be stressful, but it doesn't have to be. At the end of the day, relationships, we're a communal species. We like to connect with people. Relationships are a big part of how we sort of grow our lives and our careers. So we can make it fun. All right, so let's dive into it. So wherever you look at the research, it's going to tell you that a lot of jobs are found out through your network. And if you don't even find out about it through your network, you might get in through, you might find it on a job board, and then the network will refer you in. I don't really believe a lot of the sort of numbers that are published, but from some simple surveys we've done and some research, and also just like life experiences, it's, let's call it 50%, right? It's a good amount. If you really don't like networking, that doesn't mean you have to land a job. That's the part that for me is really important. I'm not selling networking. I just want to help people do it better. But if it's really just something you're totally allergic to, don't worry. You can still land an awesome job. But today we're going to talk about it for those that want to network. But you wouldn't be here if you didn't want to get better at networking, would be my assumption. So referrals are a key part to how you get hired, right? 40% of new hires come from referrals. 70% of companies reward employees. They usually have some kind of incentive because it's a great signal if someone who works at the company is referring their friend there. Not only because is there an incentive, but a lot of people take the relationships very serious. And if I thought working at this company wasn't great, I wouldn't refer my friend. I wouldn't want to put them into that situation. And then also, if I hired that person, I think, their judgment's going to be pretty good. That's why we hired them. So it's really a win-win. And companies really try to hire referrals. It goes a very long way to have it, have a person vetted or vouched for by someone that works there. And referrals tend to get hired faster. Sometimes they can skip a step or two in the process. Not always, some companies are going to run their process no matter what, and especially if it's like regulated and things like that. So don't want you to think it's like some kind of cheat code for landing a job faster, but especially at like smaller companies, relationships can go a long way. So I want to help you learn how to leverage them. And the thing about networking that I think some people miss is it's not just who you know, right? A lot of people say, well, I don't know that many people, haven't met that many people. That's not the point. They say that most of the introductions happen through what are called a loose tie or a loose connection. It's like a connection of a connection. So if you know 5 people and those 5 people know 5 people each, well, now you've got access to 25. And obviously it doesn't work that way. You're not going to ask everyone to, make a connection. So there's going to be some degradation as you go down the network. But the concept still applies. And you can ask, hey, do you know anyone that? And then they'll ask, especially your close connections. You don't need to do like blanket networking, but leveraging your connections for introductions and various connections is really powerful. And so you may not know who you know, at least not directly. And so that's why, getting a good understanding of who your immediate connection is and then starting to think about the potential of their networks can be really powerful. So there's a few different reasons why you might want to network and how they affect your career. It's not always to land a job. If we think about it more broadly around career growth, networking is a key part to how you continue to grow your career. So let's say first is to learn. If you're a career pivoter, or if you want to, we'd call it more like an ascender and you're trying to grow in your current path, but you're just not crystal clear on what that next thing is, well, talking to someone can be really helpful, right? So as a pivoter, if you're going from marketing to product management, talk to somebody who's in product management. You can learn about the occupation, the career path. If you're a marketing manager and you want to become a marketing director, you can talk to someone and say, hey, what does it mean to be a director? What are the skills I need to gain to be able to do that? So that's what I would say is learning. Discovering it's also kind of in the category of learning, but more broadly, if I want to just learn new careers, right? Maybe I don't even know what I want to do yet, but there's a person I really respect. And I want to learn more about what they do. So you can do that, but also now getting more specifically into the context of job searching, someone works at a great company or a company you're excited about, talking to them to say, hey, do you guys have any opportunities? Do you have any opportunities coming up? Oftentimes the people that are in a company are just going to have information that's not public, right? So I'll use Teal as an example. We closed funding and didn't announce it for 6 months, right? That with that funding, we were already hiring. So and it was not like it was confidential. We're a private company. It didn't matter. We just didn't want to do the marketing around it yet. So, if you would have talked to someone at Teal, they would have told you, oh yeah, we closed funding and we're going to be hiring, with that money. And so you can get insights and learn things that just aren't public knowledge through networking. All right. You can ask for things, right? And it might start to feel a little cringy or icky to ask. But what I would say is like more broadly, build muscles around giving. So when it comes time to ask, you can. Not saying that you should sort of keep track and keep score. That's not a reason to give. But a lot of people are looking for ways to help. We like to help, but we don't know who we can help or how we can help. And especially in a time like right now, where if you log into LinkedIn, you can't be on there for more than 5 minutes without seeing a layoff. right? Now's the time to help those folks, and let's build up those karma points. Again, not keeping score, but just from an emotional perspective. And that's going to then give us the ability to ask. You can connect with a contact and say, hey, do you guys have any open positions? Do you have anything you think I'd be a good fit for? Do you know anyone that's hiring? Do you know any companies that recently closed funding that could help us, might be hiring and opening a position? So just doing a little bit more of that like investigative research and connecting with people. And then lastly is you want to grow, maintain those relationships over time, because you never know. You never know. That same person who was a peer at one of your companies could have a real great career growth spurt and become a director, a VP, and then they could hire you. You never know. So maintaining relationships could just have long lasting, positive compounding effects on your career. All right. So let's talk about networking relationships. And if you have any questions along the way, put them in the chat on LinkedIn, in the comments on LinkedIn or the comments on YouTube. I love to field questions real time during the events. So please feel free to ask any questions along the way. Okay. So let's think about the relationships you have, because I think sometimes people might say, I don't even know where to look. This is just a list to get you started, right? You have current coworkers, past coworkers, right? You can go to them and you can connect. Friends, acquaintances, talk to your friends. Sometimes you don't even realize you have a friend from a pure social setting. You're in a fantasy football league together and you don't even realize where they work. But if you're in a time of need and you need to network and grow your career, think about all these places you're interacting with people. Family. Do you know what all your cousins do for a living? Do you know where all your cousins work? Siblings, we tend to, but think about your extended family. Classmates, alumni networks can be very powerful, right? We tend to want to connect with people that we have things in common with. So maybe you don't even know somebody, but if you went to the same school, log into the alumni association, right? Acquaintances, I'm lightly connected with like the parents at my kid's school, but those are acquaintances and I can maybe connect, depending on where you need to go. And then people you don't know at all, right? A sort of cold connection, but it's a real relationship and it should be part of your networking strategy. Then we talk about levels of connection. So someone I know directly, that's a first degree connection. Someone who knows someone I know, that's a second degree connection. And then sure, there's third, fourth, fifth, but I think those are all, for me, like equate to none, right? That's essentially doing a cold intro, or I'm going to have to try to figure out a way to get to that person. So I think for the purposes of networking practices, we just sort of consider those none. All right. Now, if switching it over to more specifically the job search, right? These are going to be some of the folks that you are going to try to connect with as you network into landing a job. So first, let's call it a connector, the person who can connect you into the company. This would be that, not a direct connection. A referrer, someone who can literally refer you into the company, probably who works there. Then you've got recruiters. You've got internal recruiters at companies. That means they work there and they're tasked with hiring. You have external recruiters, sometimes might be called like headhunters or agency recruiters. They work external to companies and are hired to help fill positions. They're very different. I'm not going to get into the nuances of that now, but it's good to understand that difference. And then there's the hiring team, which is a person who might be involved in the hiring process, but not ultimately the decision maker. And then the hiring manager, which we're going to equate to the decision maker for the purposes of this conversation. That's the person who can ultimately decide yes, no, whether you get hired. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how to network. Informational interviews are honestly, like when I first started Teal, I hadn't heard that term before. And someone kept saying to me, informational interviews are like the most important thing for job searching. And I was like, what is an informational interview? And I agree now, having thought about it and having learned about it. Informational interviews are an interview like truly to gain information. And it's really important that you go to an informational interview with that motive. If you go with an informational interview to ask for something or to specific an action, it kind of starts to sort of throw off the balance of the value of that exchange, right? Because you're going to learn, and a person with their value is that they get to teach. They get to impart knowledge on you, and that feels good. But if you come with an informational interview to say, hey, can you get me a job here? Those are tricky. And if it's someone you know, that's different. That's not an informational interview, right? So that's what an informational interview is. And there's different like stages to how you would set up your networking, and how you would think about that process, right? So first, you want to do your research. Who are the people I want to connect with? You can do this on a tool like LinkedIn. There are some sort of contact directories you could use, but honestly, LinkedIn is going to get you 99.9% of the way there. Then there's the initial engagement and the outreach to connect with people, whether that's first degree, second degree, the exchange of value, and then the developing of the relationship. All right, my screen's a little small on this share, so I'm gonna start to look this way. Sorry, you guys get the side of my face. So when in the research phase, you want to identify the people you want to connect with, right? Who can teach you about something you want to learn about? Who can help you discover new opportunities? Who can you ask for endorsements or referrals? Who haven't you spoken to in a while that you should be able to check back in with, right? These are reasons to connect. And so when you're doing that research, think about, who are all these people in that sort of realm or space that as you can be doing, as you can be looking. Then what you want to do is start to mine your contacts. You have more contacts than you realize. You've got, I still have a Facebook account. I've got connections on there. I've got a LinkedIn account. I've got all these social networks. I've got groups that I'm part of in my community, so start to list out and aggregate up all your contacts. There are tools out there that will even help you aggregate them. I don't have any off the top of my head right now. There used to be one called Cloze, I think Cloze. I don't know if it's still around, but you could connect it to your email, your text messages, your social networks, and would aggregate them all up together. And it was pretty cool. Then you want to start to think about the types of those relationships. Again, we already kind of talked through these, but who are they? How did you connect? How can you connect? You can try to find alumni. Again, LinkedIn makes this incredibly easy. If you attach your where you went to school to your profile, one thing around networking is building out your LinkedIn profile is really valuable. The more data you add to your profile, the more you can extend and extract value from that profile. Because now LinkedIn will recommend you jobs. It will help recruiters see you. So really, there's no downside to adding information to your profile. If you're a person who doesn't like to post and doesn't want to comment, that's totally fine. But at the very least, build a robust profile. You don't have to engage, you don't have to comment, you don't have to like, but have a great profile. Fill it in with as much information as you can. And some other things you can do. We have a Slack community at Teal. You can join it, and there's cool channels on there that you can talk to people. Then there's also like the Miami Tech community for anyone who's listening in from Miami and is coming to the career fair. There's lots of great ways to connect. And now there's all sorts of Discord servers you can connect to. There's a ton of Slack communities. There's even other community platforms. There's functional or occupational communities. So think about ways that you can join communities and connect with people. There's also a cool platform called Lunch Club. During COVID, it really saw a boom. I haven't seen, how much it's been used lately, but they'll randomly connect you with people. I met some really cool people on there. You have a Zoom chat, or maybe now sort of even like a coffee chat, but highly recommend you check out Lunch Club. It's a great way to network and meet people. And networking events. I think now that we're all back out of the building in Miami, we've been out of the building for a while, but go to events. There's all sorts of cool events. Go to this job fair, right? The one that is coming up. If you signed up for it, go. You're going to meet people. Not only are you going to meet companies that are hiring, you're going to meet other candidates, right? And you're not all competition, right? You might meet a product manager and you're there for marketing and they could refer you because they have a friend. And so network that leverage that relationship and expand the network. You can join business associations, go to local workshops, you can go to virtual workshops, shows, conferences. All these things are back on the table of ways to expand your network. There's also various platforms for networking events. There's, meetups still happen all the time. You can use a platform like Eventbrite that's constantly hosting, showing events. Great Miami startup called Upstream has a way to connect in a cool community. And then obviously Teal, we've got a Slack community you can join and be a part of. All right, so now we are going to practice here. We're going to look for some ways to connect. Let's head over to LinkedIn. Actually, so say I want to get this job, right? Director of Engagement Marketing. And I'm going to head over to my LinkedIn. And what I'll do is search for that job. All right, so there's a couple different things I can do. Right here on LinkedIn, I can do people. And I can find people that have had that title before. I can look to see if anyone who has my who's in my network has that title. So Tina Miller is actually an account we use for training on LinkedIn. So we'll use that one. So say I didn't know Tina, I could, reach out to her now, or if she was a coworker, I could message her. We're actually having some issues with, my extension's working. So you can now also use Teal to save your contacts. And you go over to the Teal platform, you can see all your contacts here. And this is a great way. We don't have a way to bulk import them, so it really works great with LinkedIn, and you can just start to bookmark people. But then you can get a little bit of research on their career history. You can track it. You can start to take your notes and start to write out the questions you want to ask them, track your progress, set up your follow-up dates and reminders. So really leverage LinkedIn to do that. All right. Let's jump back into it. So once you find the people you want to connect with, think about the ways that you're going to engage. All right, think about what you want to do. Don't waste people's time. Think about ways that you can add value. Think about how you can make your messages personal, how you can connect with them. We've got a bunch of templates that are in the Teal platform that can help you do that. And so I'll show you those in a minute. But again, thinking about your relationships and the types, we talked about this in the introduction, but start to categorize people this way. What type of relationship was it? What level of connection is it? And what's their role in the process that, I'm running, or in the way that I'm trying to connect? So, coworker, no connection. Well, you can't have no connection with a coworker. So I think this is from my font changing. And then what do I need them to do? I need them to help me. Actually, you know what? That's not true. That could be, so I remember now. You can have a coworker, you worked at the same company, but you didn't know them, and you want to ask for a referral, right? So let's build out a realistic scenario. I'm a marketer. I really like the company Stripe. I want to work at Stripe. I used to work at WeWork. I'm looking on Stripe's page on LinkedIn. I see that an old coworker from WeWork works at Stripe, but we didn't actually ever work together. We didn't even know each other, but I could still send them an email and say, hey, we were at WeWork at the same time. We didn't work together. Maybe make some sort of personal connection. Wow, that was crazy. Hope you saw the show on TV. Hey, I saw you have this position at Stripe. Would love to chat to you about it to see if we could, if maybe I'm a good fit. Right. So that's how you would think about sort of leveraging that network and how these connections make a difference. Obviously, if I knew that person, that'd be a very different message. And if it was a second degree, if it's a first degree that's introducing me or saying, hey, we both know this person, right, you would tailor your messaging either way. So tips for how to engage. You want to make it about learning. Again, definitely more so if you don't know the person. You want to try to make a common connection if you can. Make your requests clear. Often, I'm going to date myself here. If anyone's seen Jerry Maguire, but he's like, help me, help you. That is a really important sort of concept in job searching. What I see a lot of people do is they just say, hey, I'm looking for a job. If you know anybody. It's like, that's not specific enough. And now you're putting all the work on me to try to figure out what you need. The folks that I see very successfully ask for help are the ones that are incredibly specific about what they're looking for. Hey, I'm looking for a growth marketing position at a Series B startup. Ideally, it's remote. Right? Okay, cool. Now I know exactly what to ask my network for. I know if I know anybody, and it makes it easy for me to help you. All right. Make it more about them than you. and make it easy for them to help you. That was that last point. All right, here's an example of a template, and we can share this presentation for anyone that wants it. But here's making a connection. This is using Tina Miller's profile. Notice we both went to the same school. Would love to chat, for 20 minutes. The thing that the Calendly can be dependently. I think it's becoming pretty common now. But if that could feel presumptuous and you don't want to do it, hey, can we schedule by email? That's totally your call. I recommend it. I think for most people, they find it to be beneficial. All right. Be ready to follow up after the meeting. Before, if a lot of people get busy, this happens to me all the time. People write me and I want to write a longer response, so I don't get to it. And when they follow up, I actually really appreciate it. I'm like, oh, I've been meaning to write you. Thank you for following up. Now it gets a point where it's excessive. So I would say, wait a week, no more than 3 times, and make it easy for them to reply. Don't do a lot of open-ended questions. Don't make it complicated. Make it easy for them to say yes, no, this time works. So try to do that work in advance. And here's a follow-up example. I'm sure you're busy, so you're giving them the out, but still, if you're available, I'd love to talk. We have a template library that we can, anyone, just let us know, ask for it in the comments, and we can share it with you. A lot of these templates are now embedded directly in Teal. So let me see if I could find that. Yeah, so if you go over to your job tracker in Teal and you go over here to communication templates, you'll see that depending on the stage that your job is in, you'll have different templates that you can leverage. But we also have this Airtable that we're happy to link to for anyone that joined. All right, so let's see. This is using our context tracker, which I did a little bit earlier. But yeah, pick a template, copy paste it. I don't think I need to show you guys how to do that. And then set yourself up a follow-up date. Right. So if we were to do that in the job tracker, we'd send an email, we'd go to our contacts tracker, say I was sending an email to this person, set your follow-up date. I send my email, and on the 21st, Teal's going to email me and remind me, hey, did you follow up with Marija? And that's how you do it. It's pretty straightforward. But keep track of these things. You don't even have to use something like Teal. Use a spreadsheet, use an Airtable, use a Notion. Really try to remind yourself to do these things, because it's impossible to keep track of all these things in your head. So use a system or a platform, maybe even your calendar. Just put it in your calendar to give yourself a reminder. All right. All right, let's keep going. How are we doing on time? All right. So the exchange, what questions can you ask? Prepare. Yeah. Don't ask things that you can Google. Hey, so what was it? What did that company do? You can Google that, right? Try to keep these meetings 20 minutes, compact, tight, value, and then think about what you can offer. Don't just take. What can you give, right? So, in the meeting, think about the conversation you're having. If topics come up, could you do a little bit of research after and send it? Are there cool articles that came up in the conversation that you can send? So think about, really delivering disproportionate value to what you're getting. Then that's how you really kick off the relationship in a really good way. And this is kind of how we think about the sort of time spent in a networking meeting or an informational interview. So introduction, small talk, value exchange. Again, exchange is the important word there. And then close out, next steps. All right, here's some example questions that you can ask. How did you get into this field? What do you enjoy most about your work? What is a typical day like? Right. So we have an informational interview guide. You can check it out. We'll link to it. I'm not going to read all these for you. If you're watching back the video, obviously you can pause it. And then, for anyone who is on, let us know and we can send this to you. All right. So some additional informational interview best practices. Keep it short, 20 minutes. I like 20 minutes because 15 is kind of tight. You don't need the full half hour because that feels like the default. Share your intent in advance. So give the person an outline of what you want to talk about. Ask questions. Listen more than you talk. If you take up all the air in an informational interview, what's the point? Why are you even having it? Be grateful, thankful for the time. and don't ask for a job. Again, this is for an informational interview specifically when you're looking for information. If this is somebody you know, you can take a little leeway with that. But if you're really looking to learn from, and especially someone you don't know, don't ask for a job in that first meeting. Look, I'm a big fan of a thank you email. Now, this is not the context of a job interview, right? An informational interview, I think, feels appropriate to me that the follow-up is gratitude. This person took time out of their day that did not have to take to share information with you. So highly, highly, highly recommend a thank you email on a post-informational interview and follow up, right? Talk about any action items and anything. And this is your opportunity to also sort of end that exchange with value. You deliver value to them. All right, so here's an example. Thank you email. Thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed learning about your career. Please let me know if Oscar Health has any formal referral process, right? So now, once you feel like it went well, you can start to take it to that next step if you were, if you felt like the conversation went well. All right. This is a stream rather than a Zoom. So when we've done this workshop before, we do it at a Zoom and we do breakout rooms and we can do it. So we're going to skip that part for here. All right. So now you want to stay in touch. All right. So, set yourself a reminder, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, especially if something positive happened as a result of the exchange. So if they did give you that referral and you landed that job, you need to send them an email 30, 60 days later saying, thank you so much. This was the positive impact you had on my life, right? People like to see that the time that they invested resulted in something good, right? It makes us feel good to do things that are good. And, to just have it go open-ended is like, So give the person that, that chance to feel good about the exchange. So you really want to make sure you do that. And then if you want to maintain the relationship once a quarter, once every 6 months, just send a touch base. Let them know how it's going. Don't just make it about that one-time transaction, because then it's not really about building a relationship. It's just about taking value. All right. So stay in touch. Be mindful of their time, and reciprocate. If you can make introductions, if you find something that's valuable, you can share back with that person, do it. All right. So relationships are compounding. Compounding is a financial idea that, 10%, 1% on 1% on 1% on 1%. Before you know it, it's gotten a lot bigger than just the added value of those 1%. And relationships are very much like that. It's not just an incremental addition. Every person that you add to your relationship as a meaningful connection compounds your career growth. So really think about relationships. Think about the relationships at your current employer. Think about your past employer. And what I like to tell people here is when you take, emotions can get the best of us, especially in a time like now where companies are not doing a great job with, some of the ways that they're running layoffs and things like that. And everyone's under a lot of pressure, because their careers are on the line. I think I just posted a tweet today about, I feel bad for the folks at Twitter having to deliver some of these messages that are crazy. But you have, their job's on the line and they don't, they got to pay their bills and feed their family. So sometimes situations might not put people in the best place to act their best. And so give people grace, but then also understand that sometimes things can come around and those relationships could work. Folks that had real tension with in past jobs ended up becoming really good friends because I was able to understand that. And once we sort of left that setting, so relationships are really valuable, and, try to approach it from a place of assuming best intent and how you can add value. I always say give to get. So what can you give? How can you give? And then eventually you just feel like the world kind of takes care of you in that sense. All right. So that's kind of high level framework, some thoughts on networking, some best practices. Happy to answer any other questions. If you're on YouTube or LinkedIn, just post it in the comments. Just put something in the comments. If you'd like a copy of the deck, we'll DM it to you from the Teal account as a PDF. But would love to open it up for questions. And I know that the stream sometimes has a delay, so I'll sit here kind of quietly for a second as that gets to you. All right. Well, none have come in yet. So if you want to follow along, you can follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn. Feel free to email me any questions. That might actually be the best way to get the deck. Just email me and I'll send it to you. And we have a ton of different career content out there. The majority of it's free. Actually, all the content's free to help you with your career. So hopefully we'll see you at the event. Question just came in. What are your thoughts on platforms like Fishbowl? Fishbowl is really great. There's two main platforms that are really used for career and career conversations, Fishbowl and Blind. Highly recommend both. I think they're really good to learn about companies and to network. Blind, I think, is purely anonymous. I think Fishbowl, I think, is pseudonymous, I think is how you say it. You can kind of be both. But I highly recommend them. Super great platforms. All right. So with that, we'll wrap up. Hope to see you at the Venture Miami Career Fair. Thanks for everyone that joined. Hope you got some value out of this. And, follow us or subscribe on YouTube. We put out regular content to help you grow your career. All right. So best of luck and thanks so much.